It's a flip book.
Don't say
You'll notice our wonderful new potato quality of our recording. It does look like we're recording through a potato. And so, advanced class, this is Monday, May 7th. We're trying a new thing. I'm recording instead of using my iPad or using my phone. I'm trying to use an old tablet, which apparently has like a 0.5 quality recorder thing. So we're going to see. Experiment time. But all you really need is my melodic voice anyway, so we should be good to go from there. Then, let's see, one moment. Let me grab this to help out that. Thank you. I would never practice throwing things at kids. Why, yes, you can bring that back to me. That was very nice of you.
Don't throw it.
You can if you want, but I wasn't going to make you to... Yoink! Thanks. Alright, let's see. So today we get to one of my favorite parts of the year, and it does not involve me stabbing anybody or hurting a child. Well,
there's nothing behind this podium.
Nothing behind my... No. This is just a day of learning, and I just enjoy this part of the story. And
who dies?
Learning how to stab.
He's going to get murdered.
Yeah, he's going to give us a lesson on how to murder.
Ooh. And 2 parts. One of my favorite parts that we're going to get to today, there's no death. It's actually the opposite. It deals with love.
Birth?
Wait, and it's your favorite.
I know. You're going to get a little opposite.
Are you feeling okay?
I told you, one of my favorite days. How can I not be feeling okay? I'm excited.
I don't even know if
And then the homework, which will not come due until later this week, like Thursday, because the quiz will come due on Wednesday. And I forgot to write that over there. That's my fault. Tomorrow we do get to the NWEA test, your last one that you're ever going to have to do in my class this year. And so, I didn't want to get you too excited.
Can't tease us.
And then we have the reading that you can do after that, and then reading, and then Thursday we're going to do more chapter 5, Friday day of service. Next week we finish out the rest of this book, and we're going to read the whole thing by next Friday. So we can get through faster than that. Then, let's see, Florin and Gilder will leave up there. I think we're good. Yes, Derek?
The PowerPoint before, it said completed homework may be only used on the quiz. So does that mean...
I'm going to have to change that screen because I didn't flip it over to make it a take-home one until now. No, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So you have to...
You have to get words out.
My thinking face. Go ahead.
Okay. So you have to do the homework before the quiz.
You don't have to.
So wait, when is
So the quiz is due Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Homework is due Thursday.
Okay.
You can do the quiz and then do the homework. Or you can do the homework and then do the quiz.
So you can't do them like not do either.
Or you can do them at the same time and just go back and forth.
But why did...
Or you can use 2 hands.
Why does it...
Because I forgot to change that screen after I decided this morning to switch it to a take-home quiz. I made the PowerPoint last Friday when I was preparing for this week.
Okay.
Now you're with me? Okay. Way to point out all my mistakes on video. We can keep it forever.
Yay.
That's why he records 6th period.
Page. Yeah, this is just a tester anyway. We're never going to have to watch this. Page 52. Oh, yes, I forgot. We were in the middle of... Oh, one of my other favorite parts. We're going to get to so many of my favorite parts today. We get to this... is it the cha? Yay! Buttercup, who is a beautiful woman, and she loves her horse. And she likes the farm boy. And we are going to find out that the Countess likes him in just a moment here. Works at Buttercup Valley Farm, and then the Prince. So we're going to get to all that. So we got to the part where... Buttercup was beautiful. And then we get to the part where... Creepy. Why did we get to the creepy part of the story?
Because all these guys
all
are
the
just
guys
like watching her. She goes to town.
Correct. So we have the guys who would just randomly come into her town just to watch her walk down the road and then watch her walk by.
Girls
And
are
apparently it
bad.
was just a thing that people did. And then we got to the part where apparently a rich person came to do it, and then he passed on word. And then who shows up at the family farm?
The Count.
Ooh, by the way, what kind of relationship do Mama and Papa Buttercup have?
Not a good one. They compete on who wins the fight.
Nicely done. And then we got to the Count showing up. Why does the Count say he's there?
Because
Cows, yellow.
But what do we know about the cows?
They suck.
Only cows. They're trash.
Way to get right to it. The cows are trash. So it turns out there's a whole nother reason why he's there. And why is he really there?
To fight.
Awkward and creepily check out their daughter.
Who names their kid Buttercup?
I mean,
Who names it Prince Humperdinck?
once again, not taking place in contemporary times. It was a while ago, and I believe Humperdinck is a last name, where you don't choose it.
I know, it's just really sad.
I know, it's still that was second as
I
last.
mean, I don't think it's his first name. It's not like Humperdinck Jones.
Wait, I need to do this.
That should be a new movie.
Sounds like an ice cream.
Hi,
Mia.
Imagine.
Okay, Bobby.
Oh.
Not even here.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're saying about her from the video.
So,
She's probably not going to watch.
Mia is code word for her B points, so she was saying bye to her B points.
But she said
All
hi.
right, page 52. Count, only nods with it. Even Buttercup's mother noted a certain tension in the air. Ask the farm boy, he tends to them, Buttercup said. And is that the farm boy? Came a new voice from inside the carriage. Then the Countess's face was framed in the carriage doorway. Her lips were painted a perfect red, her green eyes lined in black. All the colors of the world were muted in her gown. Buttercup wanted to shield her eyes from the brilliance. Buttercup's father glanced back toward the lone figure peering around the corner of the house. It is. Bring him to me. He's not dressed properly for such an occasion, Buttercup's mother said. I have seen bare chests before, the Countess replied. Then she called out, You, and pointed at the farm boy, come here, and her fingers snapped on here. The farm boy did as he was told, and when he was close, the Countess left the carriage. When he was a few paces behind Buttercup, he stopped, head properly bowed. He was ashamed of his attire, worn boots, torn blue jeans. Blue jeans were invented considerably before most people suppose, and his hands were tight together in almost a gesture of supplication. Have you a name, farm boy? Wesley, Countess. Well, Wesley, perhaps you can help us with our problem. She crossed to him. The fabric of her gown grazed his skin. We are all of us here passionately interested in the subject of cows. We are practically reaching the point of frenzy, such as our curiosity. Why do you suppose, Wesley, that the cows of this particular farm are the finest in all Flooring? What do you do to them? I just feed them, Countess. Well, then, there it is. The mystery is solved. The secret. We can all rest. Clearly, the magic is in Wesley's feeding. Show me how you do it. Would you, Wesley? Feed the cows for you, Countess. Bright lad. When? Now will be soon enough. And she held out her arm to him. Lead me, Wesley. By the way, a quick pause. Countess is not an idiot. So why does she think that they're there?
For the cows.
No, because she's not an idiot.
For the girl.
So what is she aware is going on?
Getting Wesley out of the scene.
No.
Oh, trying to make the Count jealous because she's flirting with Wesley.
There you go. Because she realizes the Count came here to come check out this hot girl while she had to ride along and watch the whole thing. So all of a sudden, hot man over there without his shirt on, she's like, oh, hot man. And so she decides to go do a little flirty of her own.
I thought the Count was a guy.
The Count is a guy. The Count is a girl.
The Count is...
They are.
That's
You might not know this, but not all marriages are healthy. Sometimes there's issues. And so here, they're not.
Is that why you got arrested?
friendly, They're being observatory.
Is that why you got arrested?
Well, I don't think...
No.
You can't get arrested.
You see his reaction.
So that's why she's doing this, is to then realize that, hey, I can do awkward flirty flirt too. So now she's doing her own awkward flirty flirt. Let's see. Lead me, Wesley. Wesley had no choice but to take her arm, gently. It's behind the house, madame. It's terribly muddy back there. Your gown will be ruined. I wear them only once, Wesley, and I burn to see you in action. So off they went to the cowshed. Throughout all of this, the Count kept watching Buttercup. "I'll help you," Buttercup called after Wesley. Perhaps I'd best see just how he does it," the Count decided. "Strange things are happening," Buttercup's parents said, and off they went too, bringing up the rear of the cow-feeding trip, watching the Count, who was watching their daughter, who was watching the Countess, who was watching Wesley. And so they all take off with Wesley and the Countess, and then Buttercup, who's now suddenly feeling jealous for the first time ever, and then you have the Count, who's then watching Buttercup, and you have the parents who's watching them, and it's like a creepy Congo line as they all sort of take off from there. Creepiest Congo line ever.
Wait, does Buttercup like Wesley?
I don't think she realized she did before, but I think we're starting to come under that idea that all of a sudden the Countess, we'll find out in a moment. I know what's happening in the next 4 paragraphs, and that's why I said that. Spoiler for next 4 paragraphs. "I couldn't see what he did that was so special," Buttercup's father said. "He just fed them." This was after dinner now, and the family was alone again. "They must like him personally. I had a cat once that only bloomed when I fed him. Maybe it's the same kind of thing." Buttercup's mother scraped the stew leavings into a bowl. "Here," she said to her daughter, "Wesley's waiting by the back door. Take him his dinner." Buttercup carried the bowl, opened the back door. "Take it," she said. He nodded, accepted, started off to his tree stump to eat. "I didn't excuse you, farm boy," Buttercup began. He stopped, turned back to her. "I don't like what you're doing with Horse. What you're not doing with Horse is more to the point. I want him cleaned. Tonight, I want his hoofs varnished. Tonight, I want his tail plaited and his ears massaged. This very evening, I want his stable spotless. And I want him glistening. Now, and if it takes you all night, it takes you all night." "As you wish." She slammed the door and let him eat in darkness. "I thought Horse was looking very well, actually," her father said. Buttercup said nothing. "You yourself said so yesterday," her mother reminded her. "I must be overtired," Buttercup managed. "The excitement and all." "Rest, then," her mother cautioned. "Terrible things can happen when you're overtired. I was overtired the night your father proposed." 32 to 20, 34 to 22 and pulling away. That should have been worth 2 points, though. Buttercup went to her room. She lay on her bed. She closed her eyes. And the Countess was staring at Wesley. Buttercup got up from bed. She took off her clothes, washed a little. She got into her nightgown. She slipped between the sheets, snuggled down, closed her eyes, and the Countess was still staring at Wesley. Buttercup threw back the sheets, opened her door. She went to the sink by the stove and poured herself a cup of water. She drank it down. She poured another cup, rolled its coolness across her forehead. The feverish feeling was still there. How feverish? She felt fine. She was 17, not even a cavity. She dumped the water firmly into the sink, turned, marched back to her room, shut the door tight, went back to bed. She closed her eyes. The Countess would not stop staring at Wesley. Why? Why in the world would the woman in all the history of Florence, who isn't always perfect, be interested in the farm boy? Buttercup rolled around in bed, and there simply was no other way of explaining that look. She was interested. Buttercup shut her eyes tight, studied the memory of the Countess. Clearly something about the farm boy interested her. Facts were facts, but what? The farm boy had eyes like the sea before a storm, but who cared about eyes? And he had pale, blonde hair, if you like that sort of thing. And he was broad enough in the shoulders, but not all that much broader than the Count, and certainly he was muscular, but anybody would be muscular who slaved all day, and his skin was perfect and tan. But that came again from slaving in the sun all day. Who wouldn't be tanned? And he wasn't that much taller than the Count either, although his stomach was flatter, and that was because the farm boy was younger. Buttercup sat up in bed. It must be his teeth. The farm boy did have good teeth. Give credit where credit was due. White and perfect, particularly set against the sun-tanned face. A really fast time out. For those of you who've seen the movie, things are going to be different. Like this whole beginning part, different than the movie. There will be some parts coming up that are going to be the same. Do not give away spoilers, because we are going to get to some stuff where those of you who have seen the movie, you are going to know things. Do not spread your knowing and ruin things for others. Now back to things you don't know. Could it have been anything else? Buttercup concentrated. The girls in the village followed the farm boy around a lot whenever he was making deliveries, but they were idiots. They followed anything. And he always ignored them because if he'd ever opened his mouth, they would have realized that was all he had. Just good teeth. He was, after all, exceptionally stupid. It was really very strange. The woman is beautiful and slender and willowy and graceful. A creature as perfectly packaged, as supremely dressed as the Countess, should be hung up on teeth that way. Buttercup shrugged. People were surprisingly complicated. But now she had it all diagnosed, deduced, cleared. She closed her eyes, snuggled down, and got all nice and comfortable. And people don't look at other people the way the Countess looked at the farm boy because of their teeth. Oh dear. Now the farm boy was staring back at the Countess. He was feeding the cows, and his muscles were rippling the way they always did under the tan skin. And Buttercup was standing there, watching as the farm boy looked, for the first time, deep into the Countess's eyes. Buttercup jumped out of bed and began to pace her room. How could he? Oh, it was all right if he looked at her, but he wasn't looking at her. He was looking at her. She's so old, Buttercup muttered, starting to storm a bit now. The Countess would never see 30 again, and that was a fact. And her dress looked ridiculous out in the cowshed, and that was fact, too. Buttercup fell into her bed and clutched her pillow across her. The dress was ridiculous before it ever got to the cowshed. Some words just make kids giggle. The Countess looked rotten the minute she left the carriage with her too big painted mouth and her little piggy painted eyes and her powdered skin and flailing and thrashing. Buttercup wept and tossed and paced and wept some more. And there have been 3 great cases of jealousy since David of Galilee was first afflicted with the emotion, when he could no longer stand the fact that his neighbor Saul's cactus outshone his own. Originally, jealousy pertained solely to plants, other people's cactus or ginkgos, or later, when there was grass, which is why, even to this day, we say that someone is green with jealousy. I know, things you learn in make-believe stuff. Buttercup's case rated a close 4th on the all-time list. It was a very long and very green night. She was outside his hovel before dawn. Inside, she could hear him already awake. She knocked, appeared, stood in the doorway. Behind him, she could see a tiny candle, open books. He waited. She looked at him, then she looked away. He was too beautiful. I love you, Buttercup said. I know this must come as something of a surprise, since all I've ever done is scorn you and degrade you and taunt you, but I've loved you for several hours now. And can you get more teenage than that line? I've loved you for several hours now. And every second more. I thought an hour ago that I loved you more than any woman has ever loved a man. But half an hour after that, I knew that what I felt before was nothing compared to what I felt then. But 10 minutes after that, I understood that my previous love was a puddle compared to the high seas before a storm. Your eyes are like that. Did you know? They are. How many minutes ago was I? 20? Had I brought my feelings up to then? It doesn't matter. Buttercup still could not look at him. The sun was rising behind her now. She could feel the heat on her back, and it gave her courage. I love you so much more now than 20 minutes ago that there cannot be comparison. I love you so... I told you it's my favorite day. I love this part. It's about love. I love you so much more now than when you opened your hovel door. There cannot be comparison. There's no room in my body for anything but you. My arms love you. My ears adore you. My knees shake with blind affection. My mind begs you to ask it something so it can obey. Do you want me to follow you for the rest of your days? I will do that. Do you want me to crawl? I will crawl. Women's lib. I will be quiet for you or sing for you. If you are hungry, let me bring you food. Or if you have thirst and nothing will quench it but Arabian wine, I will go to Arabia, even though it is across the world and made up, and bring a bottle back for your lunch. Anything there that is I can do for you, I will do for you. Anything there is that I cannot do, I will learn to do. I know I cannot compete with the Countess in skills or wisdom or appeal. And I saw the way she looked at you, and I saw the way you looked at her. But remember, please, she is old and has other interests, while I am 17. And for me, there is only you. Dearest Wesley, I've never called you that before, have I? Wesley, 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 darling Wesley, adored Wesley, sweet, perfect Wesley, whisper that I have a chance to win your love. And with that, she dared the bravest thing she'd ever done. She looked right into his eyes. He closed the door in her face. Favorite day. And it only gets better. Just wait.
It can't get better than that.
Oh, it does. He closed the door in her face without a word. Without a word. Buttercup ran. She whirled and burst away, and the tears came bitterly. She could not see. She stumbled. She slammed into a tree trunk. Fell. Rose on her shoulder, throbbed from the tree trunk, hit her, and the pain was strong, but not enough to ease her shattered heart. Back to her room she fled, back to her pillow, safe behind the locked door. She drenched the world with tears. Not even one word. He hadn't had the decency for that. Sorry, he could have said. Would it have ruined him to say sorry? Too late, he could have said. Why couldn't he at least have said something? Buttercup thought very hard about that for a moment, and suddenly she had the answer. He didn't talk, because the minute he opened his mouth, that was it. She was sure he was handsome, but dumb? The minute he had exercised his tongue, it would have been all over. That's what he would have said. That was the kind of thing Wesley came out with when he was feeling really sharp. Take Buttercup. Buttercup dried her tears and began to smile. She took a deep breath, heaved a sigh. It was all part of growing up. You get these little quick passions. You blinked, and they were gone. You forgave faults, found perfection, fell madly. The next day, the sun came up, and it was over. Good experience, old girl. Get on with the morning. Buttercup stood, made her bed, changed her clothes, combed her hair, smiled, burst out again in a fit of weeping. Because there was a limit to just how much you could lie to yourself. Wesley wasn't stupid. Oh, she could pretend he was. She could laugh about his difficulties with the language. She could chide herself for her silly infatuation with a dullard. The truth was simply this. He had a head on his shoulders, with a brain inside every bit as good as his teeth. There was a reason he hadn't spoken, and it had nothing to do with gray cells working. He hadn't spoken because really, there was nothing for him to say. He didn't love her back, and that was that. The tears that kept Buttercup company the remaining of the day were not at all like those that blinded her into the tree trunk. Sorry. They were noisy and hot. They pulsed. These were silent and steady, and all they did was remind her that she wasn't good enough. She was 17, and every male she'd ever known had crumbled at her feet, and it meant nothing. The one time it mattered, it wasn't good enough. All she knew really was writing, and how was that to interest a man when that man had been looked at by the Countess? It was dusk when she heard footsteps outside her door, then a knock. Buttercup dried her eyes. Another knock. "Whoever is that?" Buttercup yawned finally. "Wesley." Buttercup lounged across the bed. "Wesley? Do I know any Oh, farm boy, it's you. How droll." That means boring. She went to her door, unlocked it, and said in her fanciest tone, "I'm ever so glad you stopped by. I've been feeling ever so slummy about the little joke I played on you this morning. Of course you knew I wasn't for a moment serious, or at least I thought you knew. But then, just when you started closing the door, I thought for one dreary instant that perhaps I'd done my little jest a bit too convincingly, and poor dear thing, you might have thought I meant what I said, when of course we both know the total impossibility of that ever happening. I've come to say goodbye." Buttercup's heart bucked, but she still held the fancy. "You're going to sleep, you mean, and you've come to say good night. How thoughtful of you, farm boy, showing me that you forgive me for my little morning's tease. I certainly appreciate your thoughtfulness, and..." He cut her off. "I'm leaving." "Leaving?" The floor began to ripple. She held the door frame. "Now?" "Yes." "Because of what I said this morning?" "Yes." "I frightened you away, didn't I? I could kill my tongue." She shook her head and shook her head. "Well, it's done. You've made your decision. Just remember this. I won't take you back when she's done with you. I don't care if you beg." He just looked at her. Buttercup hurried on. "Just because you're beautiful and perfect, it's made you conceited. You think people can't get tired of you. Well, you're wrong. They can, and she will. Besides, you're too poor." "I'm going to America to seek my fortune." This was just after America, but long after fortunes. A ship sails soon from London. There's a great opportunity in America. I'm going to take advantage of it. I've been training myself in my hovel. I've taught myself not to need sleep, a few hours only. I'll take a 10-hour-a-day job, then I'll take another 10-hour-a-day job, and I'll save every penny from both except what I need to eat to keep strong. When I have enough, I'll buy a farm and build a house and make a bed big enough for two. You're just crazy if you think she's going to be happy in some run-down farmhouse in America, not with what she spends on clothes. Stop talking about the Countess as a special favor before you drive me mad. Buttercup looked at him. Don't you understand anything that's going on? Buttercup shook her head. Wesley shook his too. You never have been the brightest, I guess. Do you love me, Wesley? Is that it? He couldn't believe it. Do I love you? My God, if your love were a grain of sand, mine would be a universe of beaches. If your love were... I don't understand the first one yet. Buttercup interrupted. She was starting to get very excited.
This ails me.
Let me get this straight. Teenage love will always be this level of dumb.
Wait, hurry up, I don't understand it either.
Let me get this straight. Are you saying my love is the size of a grain of sand and yours is this other thing? Images just confuse me. So, is this universal business of yours bigger than my sand? Oh, help me, Wesley. I have the feeling we're on the verge of something just terribly important. I have stayed these years in my hovel because of you. I have taught myself languages because of you. I have made my body strong because I thought you might be pleased by a strong body. I have lived my life with only the prayer that some sudden dawn you might glance in my direction. I have not known a moment in years when the sight of you did not send my heart careening against my ribcage. I have not known a night when your visage did not accompany me to sleep. There has not been a morning when you did not flutter behind my waking eyelids. Is any of this getting through to you, Buttercup? Do you want me to go on for a while? Never stop. There has not been... If you're teasing me, Wesley, I'm just going to kill you. How can you even dream I might be teasing? Well, you haven't once said you loved me. That's all you need? Easy. I love you. Okay? You want it louder? I love you! Spelled out, should I? I-L-O-V-E-Y-O-U. You want it backward? You love I. You're teasing now, aren't you? A little, maybe. I've been saying it so long to you, you just wouldn't listen. Every time you said, farm boy, do this, you thought I was answering as you wish. That's only because you were hearing wrong. I love you was what it was, but you never heard, and you never heard. I hear you now. And I promise you this, I will never love anyone else, only Wesley, until I die. He nodded, took a step away. I'll send for you soon. Wow. Believe me. Would my Wesley ever lie? He took another step.
Yes.
I'm late. I must go. I hate it, but I must. The ship sails soon, and London is far. I understand. He reached out with his right hand. Oh.
No!
What
You need to keep the buttons tight. And I apologize. We did not get to my favorite part. It's on the next page. I was
No, it's not. It's right on the bottom of this one.
short.